Welcome to the GetRealWealth.com radio show, where wealth means a lot more than just building a second stream of income with real estate. Listen and learn how 90% of the millionaires in the world use real estate to create a life that most people only dream about. A life that includes good health, family, romance, travel, charity, and all the other parts of a balanced life. Now, here's your host, real estate investor and consultant, Steve Davis.
Good afternoon and welcome to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis, where, as always, we're talking about building that second stream of income to increase your quality of lifestyle, to give you more time for family, for travel, for romance, and so on. And I want to get straight into an email question. I'm going to bring a guest on today, Steve Rozenberg of Mind.co. We're going to talk a little bit about property management, third-party property management, and when to use it, when I recommend not to use it. And it's not what you think. You know, there are good companies out there. This one seems to be a good company. Their leasing times are great. Their response times are great. They're just a professional, really top-notch company. But we'll talk to him in the second segment. I want to go straight to an email where an individual emailed me with close to $250,000. And he made the mistake of saying, yeah, I want to flip houses. What? Are you kidding me? Your money's not deployed. His money's literally sitting in the stock market. He lost, I'm not sure what he said he lost. It was 66 or 76 grand, something like that, due to COVID. That'll come back, of course. Don't know when, but it will. That is not what you do. This goes back to Stephen Covey's work, where we talk about begin with the end in mind. And the end in mind is having a second stream of income that comes in whether you work or not. Flipping does not produce that income. Flipping is a job. It's something you do. It can be considered self-employment, but it's something that you do, and it's, of course, taxed as self-employment. So when someone says that, or says that, they are missing the point. You want to get that $250,000 invested, preferably in apartments, before you start going out there flipping. In other words, why would you back away from the end goal and go flip when your goal is really build passive income? No. You take that money, you get it into something that's going to produce passive income, then you flip to generate more capital to put into apartments to get more passive income. Then you flip. This concept, and I think it's a fear-based thing. It's a little, maybe even a little greed. I don't want to try it. I'll just try to flip first, and then I'll use the profit from the flip. Come on. You've got to be more mature than that. You've got to be courageous. If you're going to start building passive income, and you got $250,000 sitting there losing money in the stock market, get it out of there now. Get that money deployed. Then, and only then, do you start flipping. Remember, and this is so important for people who want to be successful in really every aspect of their life, you need to read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because you wouldn't have asked that question if you were more knowledgeable. And I know you say, well, I'm asking because I'm not knowledgeable, but you didn't really ask. You told me you were going to flip first. That's not asking. So that is a bad idea. It is the wrong idea. Get that $250,000 deployed into apartments. You could do it with single family houses, don't get me wrong, but it would definitely be much, 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 much slower It would not be the highest and best use for your money. So get that money deployed into some apartment complexes, then and only then should you start flipping to generate additional capital to be able to buy more apartments. Because there is no reason for somebody with that type of money to be starting, well, even with single family. It doesn't even make sense. So pick up that book, read it, focus deeply on the part about begin with the end in mind. Where do you want to be in 5 years? And then you start making decisions based on that end in mind. And flipping is not the beginning. Get your money deployed into some apartments, then start flipping. So I hope that helps. Okay, we do have another email question here. What is your opinion on investing in Airbnb? Airbnb got slaughtered during COVID, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. I'm not a fan of it. You know, I like signing a year lease and I'll talk to you in 12 months type lifestyle. Whereas these guys that do the Airbnb, if they're managing it themselves, that's a hotel. You say, well, we make a lot more money. Yeah, but you do a lot more work. And if you have somebody else run it, you're not really making more money because you're paying them to run it. So I've seen, I don't know, 6 or 7 people come to me with Airbnb business models, and after analyzing it, they weren't really making any more money than regular single family, but they, when you take out the time, changing sheets, getting it ready for the next person, you know, they're there for 3 days and you got somebody moving in the next day. I'm not a fan of that. Just a tremendous amount of work, and the fees that these management companies are charging to run these Airbnbs just eats away at the profit to where you're making about the same. Again, I've only seen, like I said, 6 or 7 of them, but you're making the same amount of money that you would with just a regular single family rental, but you're busy all the time. And this again comes down to people who don't value their time. They do stuff just for money. Their sole focus is money, 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 even if it takes them away from their kids, takes them away from their spouse, takes them away from their time for romance. Forget that. I want time. That's the big asset. And no, I do not care for Airbnbs as a rule. That's not to say people aren't making good money with it. It's just not my style. I don't want anything that consumes that much time. Okay, when we come back, we'll bring on Steve Rozenberg, and we'll start talking about my idea of when to start using a management company. And sometimes it's from day one, but most of the time it's from about 20 units forward. We'll talk more after the break here on the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Thanks for listening. Hi, this is Steve Davis, host of the GetRealWealth.com radio show. Catastrophes happen in the U.S. and around the world on a regular basis, causing tremendous financial difficulty for those unprepared. However, some people are prepared. These are the people with a second stream of income. This month, we are offering a free 2-hour workshop on how to use real estate to build a second stream of income for your family. For reservations, visit GetRealWealth.com and click on the free workshop button at the top of the page. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thank you. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Today I've got with me a special guest, a good friend, Steve Rozenberg, and we're going to talk about property management. He is with Mind.co, not com, MYND.co. So you might want to pull that up if you're in a place where you can do that. Steve, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me, buddy. Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it, man. I know how busy you are. I see you on Facebook, and you're doing live events all the time now.
Yeah, I'm definitely busy. That's for sure. This I would have thought this would have slowed me down, but I'm learning that if you use technology correctly, it actually will speed up the velocity of what you do.
So let's talk a little bit about mind for a moment, and then we'll get into the concepts of when to use property management, when not to. And tell us a little bit about Mind.co.
Sure. So Mind is a property management company. They're based, headquartered out of West Coast, Oakland, California, managing close to about 10,000 properties in 16 different regions. And most of those regions are, I would say, probably the more investable markets that investors would want to own in, Houston being one of them. And, you know, they utilize technology as much as possible to decrease the friction that normally goes on when it comes to property management and it comes to managing the asset and the day-to-day problems. And if you think of most industries out there, the ones that are succeeding, even today, are the ones that cause the least amount of friction between, you know, consumer and company. And so their goal is to basically, you know, in essence, if you were to use the term, they're trying to become, in a way, the Uber of property management, to simplify the human interaction, automate it as much as possible to get investors to be able to scale and utilize technology to the best of their ability is probably the easiest way I could say it.
Well, it's a neat concept because I've seen people literally buy 60 houses in 1 year. Okay, that's the exception, a massive exception to the rule, but they do it. Their highest and best use is not managing property. Their highest and best use, obviously, is finding deals. They're masters at it. So a company like yours can allow that person to continue to do what their highest and best use is. That's part of why I like what you do and I like the company, because for somebody that's that aggressive, they don't need to be taking phone calls. They need to be finding their next deal.
Yeah, you know, that's a great point, Steve. And you and I, you know, we think similar in this way, that most people, they don't get involved into real estate to have a second or third job. Most people get involved in real estate to create wealth and free up their life. And for some reason, there's this ego ideology that exists, for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, that people feel that when it comes to actually managing the asset, that is the part that they should take on themselves. When you think about it, that's actually the most time-critical, time-consuming part. And if it doesn't go right, this whole thing falls apart and nothing will work and you won't get any returns on your money if you don't know what you're doing. And so I don't know. And I was one of those people in the beginning, before I even understood property management, when I had my own portfolio here in Houston, that I just assumed that's what you did. I assumed that, well, you own property and you kind of manage it and it should run on its own and maybe a couple calls, but that's not the reality if you want to scale to a level that you have never been. Because if I want to go to a level that I have never been to, I've got to get with people who know how to get to that level. And sometimes that's leveraging other people's knowledge, just like having a mentor. You get a mentor because you want the mentor to take you to another level. Part of that mentor is using the team that mentor has to help escalate you to the next level. And I think that for some reason we have a concept that if we show that we don't know what we're doing, it shows a weakness. And I think the reality is the other way around. The people who don't know what they're doing and hire the team, they actually show their strength because they're showing them that, hey, I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. And I'm willing to hire those people because my time is more valuable than figuring it out on my own.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I was reading, we actually covered this on the radio show last week, that one of the strengths of a true entrepreneur who eventually reaches the point where they own a business, they're not just self-employed, they own a business, they're the people that recognize their strengths and weaknesses and hire people that are better than them at whatever their weakness is. So this was one of the things I was going to discuss, Steve, is that some of the students at Real Wealth Academy, I'm sitting with them. I guarantee I'm going to sit with a few of them and go, you do not need to be running property. You're not very good with people. You're kind of harsh. You're, and you just got to be honest with them and go, your personality is not cut out for sales. And that's what property management is. It's sales. And I'm going to say, this is who you need to call, and then you need to get back out there focused on finding your next deal. So I totally agree with that. And I've found that what I do is I look at my energy levels when I think about doing something. Let's take accounting, for instance. When I think about doing accounting, my energy levels drop through the floor. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go look at it. I don't want to, I hate it. So you can bet I've hired somebody who thinks, ooh, accounting, yay, I love it, numbers, woohoo. And you find somebody who's passionate about your weakness. Hire them and let them take care of that, and you get back to your highest use, which for me is teaching. I get pumped when I'm about to teach a class. So I think that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and one of the things that, and I don't know if you and I have ever discussed this when it comes down to DISC personality profiling. And, that basically is, what you're made of, what you're the type of person you are. And I've done a lot of studying on DISC profiling and learned a lot about it, and I've taught classes on it. And basically what I have learned is that, everybody is a form of DISC, D-I-S-C. And D is the dominant person, very matter-of-fact, to the point, kind of a bull. An I is a very influential, social butterfly salesperson. An S is someone who's very sentimental, emotional. They do things for the good of their heart. And a C is a very compliant person, data-driven. It's all about numbers. And everybody is some variation of DISC. And I there's tons of different analogies and different tests, but we'll just use DISC as an example. And what I've learned is that if somebody is a C, data-driven, they love to go into their office, shut their door, run spreadsheets to the nth degree, analyze everything, well, they are not going to be good salespeople because that is not their DISC profile. And if you hire someone and assume that just because they said they like sales, but their DISC profile clearly shows they like data, that is what they like to do, and that's what they're going to be good at. And so you're like you and I, we would be horrible as accountants. Could we do the task? Absolutely. We can learn a skill. Are we going to be good at it for the long term and say, man, that was the best job I ever had? Probably not, because that's not our DISC makeup. And so the majority of investors out there statistically are the C DISC. And the reason they're the C is because it's data. Buying an investment property is all about numbers. It's not emotions. You can't be the bull in the china shop that, buys and sells stocks at a whim. You've got a resident in the property. You've got to understand. And they're not S's because they're not emotional. They're C's. And so you've got to understand, like you said, most C's, they're not good salespeople. They really are not good with people in general. They like to go to their work and run numbers and crunch and be engineers and CPAs and all that. So I agree 100% with what you said. It's a matter of understanding what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. Play to your strengths, hire your weaknesses, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's it. And it's the feeling that I get is literally a feeling of happiness. If I'm doing something and I don't feel happy, I can tell that's not in, as you call it, the DISC for me. And when I feel happy, my energy levels increase, I perform better, and I excel at it, as opposed to trying to force myself to do something I'm actually unhappy with. So let's talk now about my opinion, and then, let me tell you my past experience. A lot of people know But the most I've ever run all by myself, where I really felt like I had control of it and there were no worries whatsoever, was about 20 houses. To me, that was a cakewalk. But that's because I'm a kind of a combination of a salesperson and I don't know what else you would call it. It's just I love to deal with people. I enjoy it. Doesn't bother me. A maintenance call, if I'm making $8,000 a month and I get 2 maintenance calls, well, that's $4,000 per maintenance call. I'll take that. But above 20 units, it seemed, and I'm not sure what number, whether it was 24, 25, it seemed like it was a little more work than it was worth. So we'll talk more about that when we come back from the break, Steve. This is the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis, along with my special guest, Steve Rozenberg of Mind.co, MYND.co. Thanks for listening. Do you dream of a better life for you and your family? Do you want more time with your family? Would you like to travel more? Would you like to be less dependent on a job for your income? The solution is simple. Build a second stream of income. We can show you how. We are offering a free 2-hour introductory workshop on how to use real estate to build a second stream of income for you and your family. To reserve a seat, visit GetRealWealth.com and click on the free workshop button at the top of the page. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thank you. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis, along with my special guest, Steve Rozenberg of Mind.co, MYND.co, a property management firm. And I was just kind of describing about the point that I think most people should get property management. But I don't want you to forget that I said some people should start from day one. They're just not, they don't have the personality for it. Steve, what is the average number of units that one of your clients owns? You've got people across the board, don't you?
You know, believe it or not, the national average I just heard is, I believe it's about 1.3 to 1.8 properties.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is different than what we would think, right? We would think it's people that get to a point of unscalability. But I think that, you know, we have to look at who the client is, and what is the client doing, and what is it they want in life. And I think that's what, like, to you and I, when we hear that, we think that how does that even make sense? But when you look at the person who has a career job and they have, you know, the ability to scale by maybe they're working, they've got a career, they've got family, and the last thing they want to do is either figure this out, get wrapped up in a lawsuit, or maybe they were in a lawsuit or something happened. They just want to own the asset, not have the job. So I think that, because I'm like you, and I know what you're going to say, how is that possible? But that's actually our national number.
Yeah, I would have expected it to be 10 plus.
Yeah.
You know, but I think a lot of that also, they're counting people who are investing out of state. There's
Correct.
really no way to manage your own property out of state. I know some people do it. I think it's crazy. So they're counting those people, and a lot of people really do want this to be passive from day one, even if they don't, you know, make $400 a month profit per deal. They spend $100 or $150 with you, and you can, I'm just throwing numbers around if you want to correct me on that. It's instantly passive income. It's a little less, but who cares? It's all passive.
And I think what it comes down to, Steve, is what's the goal of doing it? You know, I get a lot of people that I've, you know, over the years I've talked to people, and, you know, I'll ask them, like, why are you even getting involved in real estate? Like, let's just start with that at the basics. And once we can identify that, we can figure out what the right strategy is. Because, look, you know, we're not going to the moon when it comes to managing a property. This isn't rocket science. However, it is, you know, this sandbox has a lot of glass in it. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can get hurt. if, nowadays this is a very litigious society, right? You've got, we can just go into the realm of emotional support animals, ESAs, or therapy animals, and everything with this coronavirus and just everything that goes on. This is like a boiling pot of litigation in some instances. And the question is do you want to get wrapped up in this, or do you want to say, this isn't why I'm owning real estate. I'm owning real estate to create wealth, and I'm willing to, my time is more important than me figuring out the laws. Because, look, even if you have one property or you have 50, it's a business that is very highly regulated, that you have to know the laws and you have to know what you're doing. And, you have people relying on you, whether they're residents living in the property, whether your family that's expecting the money to come in, or time with them, right? You and I are big believers in time.
Yeah.
These are things that you don't get back. You don't get back yesterday when you had to go figure out how to fix a toilet, when you say, man, I could have just spent $150 and this thing would have been resolved, or I spent, all weekend long in Home Depot trying to figure out how to get a screw in the hole that didn't work. So what's your time worth? And that nobody can answer that except the person that owns the property. And as you say, why are they doing this, and where do they want to go, and are they even good at it? Do they even own a tool set? And so it's, do you even want to learn how to lay tile? They may go, I don't want to do any of this. I just want it as an asset class to give me a return. So different goals for different people, I think.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point in that some people, not just what we were discussing earlier, aren't qualified to do it, but it's people who aren't qualified to manage. Not only can they don't have the personality to lease, they don't have the ability to manage, and certainly these people that are trying to do the repairs themselves, when they're unqualified, that just makes it 10 times worse.
Right.
I don't believe anybody should be working on their own property. There's nothing that I can do that I can't hire somebody to do faster and better. Yeah, it costs a little more, but it's worth it. It's done right, it's done faster, and I'm done with it. It's over.
Well, and here's an interesting way to look at it. I was interviewing a buddy of mine from Bigger Pockets, Jay Scott, and he's got a lot of different things going on. Very, very smart individual. And I said, Jay, how do you decide what you're going to do with your time? I mean, the guy has some race horses. He's in a bunch of businesses, real estate.
Wow.
And I said, how do you identify what is worth your time and what is not? And he said, I used to quantify it by saying, if I want to make $1 million a year, then anything I do, or whatever the number was, I forget the number, but he said, it has to be worth $250 an hour. So he says, is that equal that amount? And can I get someone to do it for less than that amount if I'm hiring it out? So there's what's called opportunity cost, right? So opportunity cost is, could I be doing something that's earning me $250 an hour to pay someone $100 to do something that, number one, I'm not good at and I don't like doing? He says, now that number is $500 an hour. So he says, when someone asks me to do something, or if they want me involved in a project, he says, I have to ask myself, is this going to give me $500 an hour to make me the yearly revenue that I want to make? And he says, it's really just numbers. He says, it has nothing to do with whether I want to or don't want to. It's a matter of, I have a limited asset called time, and I have to make sure that that time is being allocated correctly to get me to my goal. And so it's a different way to look at what we want to do as opposed to what the numbers and our limited resource of time is actually allocating to us. And I'll never forget, I remember one of my mentors told me, and this is something that stuck with me, and I think you and I talked about this before. He said, Steve, the average person lives 4,400 weeks a year. He said, that means if you're 38 years, you have 1,950 Wednesdays left in your life. What are you going to do with those Wednesdays? And that really hit home, because I was over 38 when he told me that. But, it really hit home that I realized this is a definite number that we are approaching. And, look, I know you're a big believer in lifestyle and what your time is worth and how you allocate your day. I think we all need to do a better job of really thinking. And this, I know this goes beyond property management, but this is a bigger picture of why are we doing this, and what do we want as a result of owning this real estate is the bigger question, in my opinion.
Yeah, for me, all of it was about time. I wanted more time with my kids, more time to romance my wife, more time for time. And I really like that concept that you shared about, hey, my time's worth $500 an hour. Am I going to go repair a toilet and make $500? No, somebody else is going to do that. I never heard it put that way before, but that was the way that I thought. Hey, this is not the highest and best use for me. I need to go find my next house, not repair this one. Yeah, that's a great analogy. I'm going to have to think about that a little bit till that digests, because that is powerful, especially the concept of how many weeks you live.
It just makes you really think about, okay, what am I doing? And if you say, I don't make $500 an hour, well, that's time that you can sit there and think. And actually, a lot of us, I think and I have this challenge too, that I'm so busy being busy, it's hard to sit back and actually just think and do nothing, because you can actually create more value by sitting there and sharpening that mental axe than just saying, hey, I bought a rental property, I'm going to go collect a rent or replace tile or deal with this issue. Just thinking, you could come up with $1 million idea. I mean, right now, this post-COVID, everything that's going on, there will be the next Uber that will come out of this concept. The next successful business model is being created right now. Someone is creating this out of necessity because they have time to think and really go into this deep model of thinking. But if you don't have time to stop and think, there would never be, an Uber, an Airbnb, whatever it is, So it's interesting to think about what is opportunity cost that's not being done. We sometimes are so busy, we misplace the concept that just because I am busy, I am progressing.
Yeah.
Don't assume movement
being
has
busy
anything
is success,
to do.
not necessarily.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Okay, well, let's talk about, pretend like I'm a prospect. I've got 10 houses. They all cash flow about $350 a month profit. That's after principal, interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance, management. What can you do for me? What is it going to cost me to have mine come in and run those 10 units?
Sure, it's a good question. So the first question I would want to know is, let me give you my perception of this. I haven't done sales in a while, so I'll kind of crawfish back a little here. But
okay.
The one thing that I want to make sure I understand is, are we a fit? What is it you want out of a management company, and what is it you think that I'm going to give you? Because I want to make sure that a management company, any management company, is going to give you what you need. And the biggest challenge a lot of investors have is when they pick a management company, they pick the management company based on the first person that answers the phone. And I tell them, you have all of your life savings wrapped up, and you are picking a company because A, either they are the cheapest, or B, because they answered the phone first. Is that how, if you had to get surgery done, would you pick your doctor that way?
No.
You wouldn't. So why would you pick your retirement that way?
Well, hold on. We got to go to break, Steve. I want to hear the rest of this when we come back from the break. All right, this is the GetRealWealth.com radio show. You're listening to AM 700 KSEV, the voice of Texas. We'll be back with my special guest, Steve Rozenberg, after the break. Thanks for listening. Are you tired of losing money in every down market? Did you know that real estate makes money in both the up and down markets? In fact, we make more money in the down market. Hi, this is Steve Davis, host of the GetRealWealth.com radio show. Yes, we are praying for a down market, and you should know why. To find out why, attend our free 2-hour introductory workshop. To reserve a seat, visit GetRealWealth.com and click on the free workshop button at the top of the page. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thank you. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. Remember, I am speaking live tomorrow evening with a special introductory course on real estate investing. And it's really on much more than that. It's on building the life that you want. We just happen to use real estate to build that second stream of income. It'll be the first live event at our new office right there at Kirkwood and I-10. If you'd like to reserve a seat for that and meet me and see what we're doing, see how our coaching systems work, go to getrealwealth.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, click on that free workshop and reserve a seat. I look forward to meeting you tomorrow evening. We're now back with my special guest, Steve Rozenberg of Mind.co, MYND.co, and we're talking about who should be using a property management company. And at this point, he's talking about what are your goals. So go ahead and finish your thoughts, Steve.
Yeah. So, one of the things I always want to know with people is, does our value of any management company in general, and this is, I think, the problem, is many people go to a price point to match what the value is. And when you equate it to, let's just say these houses, and, we have a 3-tiered pricing system. One is basically a basic model, then we have a mid, then an upper level, which is different for different markets, okay? So obviously whatever market someone's in is a different price point. But let's say it's anywhere between, 8% and it goes on down to, 5%, depending on what you want.
Okay.
But here's the point of this, is that if I were to ask people, listen, if you got a company like mine that is a national company, that is state-of-the-art technology, that has the ability to help you scale your wealth to everything that you've ever wanted without leaving your office, and it gets you to what you want to go, is there value in that? Well, I would say for someone like me that's gone and been through the trenches, I would say yes. So how do you quantify that value, in my opinion? How do you quantify the life that you want to have? And if you quantified it based on your competition, so let's just say easy math, $100 a month for Mind Property Management and $75 a month for the cheap basic management company that's out there. Okay?
Okay.
So my question to you, Mr. Investor, is you're talking a difference of $25 a day, which is about $25 a month, which is about 90 cents a day. So for less than the cost of a cup of coffee, is it worth you getting the ability to scale to the level that you want to do, and the whole reason you're doing this? I would say the answer would be yes. So I say, okay, if you were to put us side by side and we both cost $0, we were both free, but you still got everything you got from us at Mind, and then you got from someone else, who would you choose? And most of the time they'd say, well, if it's free and all's equal and I can scale into 16 regions and use technology and scale to the goals, I would use Mind. Okay, so now the question is it worth 90 cents a day? Because that's what we're talking about here.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of understanding that, if you sell on price, as soon as someone cheaper comes along, unless you're the Walmart that you can go to bottom barrel pricing, you're always going to get outbeat on price by someone because there's no value. There's no relationship. To me, I used to tell people all the time when I was doing sales, I'm a little rusty, but I tell people all the time, listen, if you don't think I can get you to that promised land, then you should not hire my company, because we're wasting each other's time. I can help other people with the time that I have. If you don't see value in that, then why would I need to convince you I can go help someone who wants my help? And so it's like you, right? So how many people do you need to sit and convince as a mentor that you wish and hope that they would use you, as opposed to the people that are knocking down your door saying, Steve, I'm ready. Teach me how to create wealth. Where do you think your time is better spent? And the answer to me is the people that want it. It's like when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? And so I think that's very relevant. And again, I think it's very relevant. I know I'm going kind of on a sidetrack here, but when it comes to managing your asset and growing your wealth, I want someone that's on the same side of the table as me saying, hey, Steve, what do you think I should do here? Should I sell this property? Should I buy another one? Should I double down? Based on my goals and my strategy of life, what should I do? And I would say, if I were you, this is how I would do this, this, and this. And they go, you know what? Thank you. I'm going to buy more properties, and I'm going to refer more people to you. And to me, that is building on relationships and building on trust.
Well, I did a couple of calculations while you were talking, and I'm almost amazed that, a $1,750 a month rent, that's $140 to manage that at 8%. That still leaves me with, on that deal, about $300 a month positive cash flow. That's going to still be a 15% or higher cash-on-cash rate of return, and I do nothing.
Exactly.
And that high-end price, the 8 cents, includes some special things, doesn't it?
Oh, sure. I mean, think about, what about a rent guarantee, right?
Yeah.
That would be nice if you had someone guaranteeing your rent, that if the tenant got evicted, you had a guarantee on rent, and you had a guarantee on evictions. There's peace of mind. It's not, and the thing is, you think about something else. For example, let's talk about economies of scale, right? And this is what I used to tell people. When we had our company here in Houston, just the local empire, we would have an AC guy that we were giving about $300,000 to $400,000 a year in business to.
Wow.
So I would tell them, who do you think if we call that AC guy on a Saturday night and say, I need you to get to a job now that we're giving $300,000 to $400,000 in revenue to, and you call up without knowing anyone and say, I'd like you to come fix my AC, who do you think he's going to go to first?
Yeah, I know exactly. He's going to go with you.
Exactly. So there's value there, right? Because number one, you're not trying to call, you're not wasting your time. Because, Steve, I think the one thing a lot of people have a hard time understanding that you and I know firsthand, people do not put a value on the mental stress of not knowing what to do in situations like that. I remember when I went through Hurricane Ike, and we lost about 20 roofs off of our single-family houses. And we had to figure out how to do this because I'd never been through a hurricane losing that much. The mental stress of dealing with that and not knowing and not having someone say, hey, it's okay, we've got this. When you're doing it on your own, that's a very scary time. And it's something that nobody wants to go through because, the great thing about real estate is there's no rules. You can do whatever you want to do. The bad thing about real estate, there's no rules. You can do whatever you want to do, and there's no one to tell you you've done it wrong or you're doing it wrong. You're going down a bad path until you're down that path. And that's the thing that I think, the thing about a property management company, a mentor, a title company, a realtor, these should be seen as assets to your team to help you get to your end destination goal, not as an adversary. And I think that's where we kind of sometimes get mixed up in what it is they're doing. And because a lot of times we don't have those expectation meetings with them in the beginning saying, this is what I expect of you. This is where I'm going. Can you help get me there? They don't do that. They say, well, they answered the phone first or they were the cheapest. Well, that's not the way to create a respectable team to get you to an end goal, in my opinion.
That's a short-term, lazy, greed decision, and it's going to
Absolutely.
bite you in the butt eventually.
Yep.
You bring up a good point. I know people that consider banks, they call them banksters. I'm like, are you kidding me? I love my bankers.
Yeah.
I love them. They're part of my team. They've kept me from making bad decisions before. I was mad they turned down the deal, but about a month later I went, boy, I'm glad I didn't do that deal. Same thing with attorneys. Same thing with CPAs. These are people on your team, like your management company, that you need to have. You need to have a team you can trust, and mine seems to be that way. That's for sure. So
yeah, and it's whoever the company is they choose, whether it's mine or anyone, you really want to make sure. You and I have given you the top 20 questions before that you've given out to ask your management company. I just think it's so important that you take the time to really ask those hard questions so that you know what you're doing. And you're not setting yourself up for failure going, oh, they ripped me off. They didn't rip you off. You were lazy and you didn't take the time to educate yourself.
All right. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. You shared some really great ideas way beyond just property management. You have a great day, Steve. Thanks again.
All right, buddy. We'll see you.
Take care. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. This has been the GetRealWealth.com radio show.
This has been the GetRealWealth.com radio show. Please remember that this show is for entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as legal, tax, or investing advice. Always get a professional opinion before making any investment decision. To find out about the mentoring and consulting at Real Wealth Academy, visit GetRealWealth.com and attend one of our free introductory workshops on real estate investing. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of your day.